Welcome to Through Their Eyes. This is Season 3, Episode 3, and we have another wonderful opportunity to give some advice to our younger selves. This season, we are kind of going through that mentality of what advice would I give if I had the opportunity to sit down with myself at different stages of life. You know, so many TV shows and movies talk about going back to being a teenager or having a do-over and having the chance to stop and reconsider and, oh, when I did this the first time, this is what happened, and now I'm going to do it this way so this happens. That's kind of what we're trying to do today. The only unfortunate thing is there is no rewind button that we get to press. If so, we would certainly make some different decisions and choices, and therefore, we're going to start today and just kind of ask, you know, because this gentleman, this brother in Christ, whose name is Chris, he is a young man. He is 25 years old, older than I am, and that would make you 56, by the way.
Yeah, I appreciate that.
Yeah, you're welcome.
I appreciate that.
He's a younger man, and so it feels somewhat disingenuous to be like, you know, childhood and all that. I'm just going to start with teenager. So if you had the ability to give yourself advice as a teenager, which was only 45 years ago for you, what would it be?
Well, things are going downhill fast.
Before I do that, though, I gotta remember. Tell us who you are. I forgot about that. We know you so well. Tell us who you are, where you're at, and then you can answer the question I asked.
Okay, well, my name is Chris Butler, and I'm currently working with the Philadelphia Church of Christ in Philadelphia, Mississippi. We have been there now for 13 years, and so we're a relatively small work in what I consider to be a mission field in Mississippi. Seems as though the central part of the state down, the churches get pretty thin, but we have a good work going there, and very glad to be there and just to be able to do the work. So I thought a lot about these questions, and I know in talking about this, when you first asked me to do it, and in specific this topic, my first thought was, how much time do you have? How much time do you have to do this?
18 minutes left.
And so there are so many things that come to mind, and so I sat down and tried to generalize some of them. I was not reared in a Christian home, and that came with a lot of challenges on its own. And so at about 16, I think, I was introduced to the church, eventually became a Christian through the work of David Jones, his family. Wayne and I are pretty close, his sister Shelley, and so on. And so about 16 years of age, I became a Christian. A lot of that was wanting something different, knowing that there was something better out there and that I needed to find it. And so now looking back, I know that I did. But the advice, I guess, that I would give to myself, and I had to write this down because I wanted to word it very carefully. First, I would tell that young man that becoming a Christian cannot change the past, and it cannot remove the consequences of the past. And so I think I lived in a little bit of a delusion, thinking that in becoming a Christian, everything would all automatically be better or different. And so this answer is kind of based in that. I would tell that young man to be aware of the times the old man creeps in, and to continue to grow and to heal through Christ. As we know, there are a host of passages that teach us what we should do as it relates to the old man. And obeying the gospel, the old man dies. Following Christ, there's a daily aspect to that. And then Paul later would write to the Ephesians in chapter 4, which I always thought was interesting, to Christians. You've got to continue to put off the old man. And so there's an aspect in which he can continue to rear his ugly head And so that process of growth needs to continue. And so I think that's the gist of it, just to continue to grow, recognize times where you need to heal, and work to do that, or allow Christ to do that through what He has provided for us in the gospel.
Yeah, absolutely.
That is great advice, no doubt. You think about the next phase of life, adulthood. Adulthood hits everybody a little bit differently, but certainly, you get into those points where you're meeting your spouse, starting to have kids, things like that. So kind of pick one of those areas. And what advice would you give to your adult self?
Again, this one is multifaceted in that there are so many areas where your upbringing and past can affect your future. I've learned that we become more like our parents than sometimes we would like. Now, I say that with the knowledge that my parents have obeyed the gospel. And so while those early years were difficult, and there are some leftovers, so to speak, through which we are working, that there is hope. And so I guess one of the first things I would say is, and it's kind of twofold, it's okay to ask for help. Number one, that as Christians we are not alone, and so it's very wise to reach out to people who have been through similar circumstances to seek counsel or wisdom wherever that may be found. So it's okay to ask for help, and it's okay not to be okay. And I think far too many people suffer in silence when they don't have to, for whatever reason. I won't get into all of that. And I think the last part of that would lead in, don't be so hard on yourself. Give yourself grace. Give yourself room to grow, even to become aware of things that maybe deep inside. We all have things about us that we don't. At times you don't understand why you are the way you are. Mm-hmm. Like, here's this trait or quirk or whatever it may be, and you don't really know why you are the way you are. But then later in life, as you grow and as you mature, you start to find out some of these things. So I would say, as that young adult, give yourself the opportunity to grow and to mature, because that's going to affect everything else in life, like you mentioned, wife and children. And as we look back, I think we all would say there are so many things we would do differently, and so I think that's the piece of advice I would give.
Yeah. Well, as somebody that has been preaching for just a little over 12 years myself, and a lot of that was not full-time local work preaching. It was preaching on Sundays for a small congregation in Mississippi. I know that I look back to those days and think, what was wrong with me? Why in the world did I say that or do that or do all of these things? And I look at it and think, if I could go and tell him something, it would be, don't do that. And I remember being in preaching school, and I don't know if Brother Liddell did this for y'all, but he did for us with I think it was Bob Newhart's counseling video, where someone says, well, I'm really afraid about being put into a box and buried alive. And he says, stop it, just don't do it. And the whole video over and over again, he just finally goes, stop it, stop. And then finally at the end he goes, stop it or I'm going to put you in a box, And so there's this mentality of,
that's right,
you got to knock it off. And I wish that I could go back and say that to myself. And I look at you, Chris, and I see someone that I'm not asking for you to tell me your age, but I genuinely don't know how old you are, but I've never pictured you as being that much older than I am. And some of that is because, you still look very young, and the other part is you're still very immature. And I know that you know how to have a good time and have fun, but I've always viewed you as a younger preacher still. And so I would love to hear, though, your perspective, because you've been preaching now for how long?
Well, I'm 25, so
that's right.
Is that what you said earlier?
Years,
25.
12 years old.
Like
you started your first local work
years,
in Philadelphia, and then
right.
kept you all these years.
I'm 49 years old.
Okay.
Just turned 49 this August. For some reason, my family gets a kick out of that. Really looking forward to next year. So I think I'll plan a vacation in August and just be gone all month and let them deal with it on their own. So when I went to the School of Preaching, I did not have the intentions to preach. In a full-time sense.
Yeah.
So I did something similar to what you mentioned. I preached. I filled in. I would teach at Nesbitt, my home congregation. I'd preach there if they needed. I would preach down in Como, Mississippi. There was a small church there that was trying to keep the doors open, and so I would go down there and preach. And then as it came closer to time for my marriage to Amber, I began full-time work in 2002. And so whatever that math is, if you want to do that. But I've been preaching for what seems like a long time now.
So when you think about younger preacher to older preacher, you would agree, I'm assuming, with the statement that you feel like there's some things you do differently.
I'll put it this way. I did a gospel meeting at my first work earlier this year. And first time I had been back. And I told a friend of mine, I said, the first thing that I really, really feel like I want to do or need to do when I step into the pulpit is quite simply say, I'm sorry. Because there are a host of things that I would do differently, a host of things that I would change. It's hard to single that down to one thing. And so the way that I did it was kind of generalize it, but it's a I guess I'd say it this way, it's a point that would cover everything. And so I guess my piece of advice to that young preacher would be learn to love like Jesus in everything that you do. Learn to love like Jesus. And, knowing the truth is important and preaching the truth is important. But sometimes we can preach the truth without that love. And I don't know if that's immaturity, or I don't maybe put my finger on exactly why sometimes we can do that or come across in a way that we shouldn't. But those two things are not mutually exclusive. We can absolutely preach the truth and stand for the truth and at the same time love like Jesus loved. And one of the texts that I've really grown to love in the last probably 2 years is 2 Peter 1. We talked about that at camp this year. And I think the reason is because it challenged me. Like it really hit me hard. I used to view those graces as not a progression of things, but as distinct and separate. And so I'm going to have faith, and then I'm going to figure out virtue, and then I'm going to go over here and figure out how to get, knowledge and temperance and all of those things. And I don't view that passage that way anymore. I think it's a progression of what faith looks like when it grows. And ultimately, faith should lead us to look like Christ, which is knowing how to love. Yeah. That passage ends in brotherly love and charity. And so if our faith is growing, if we're moving in the right direction, so to speak, then we will end up looking like Jesus. And that means treating one another properly in every aspect, from the pulpit or just in our churches, personally, and we will love the world as we should. And so, just from my perspective and me personally, I think one of the biggest areas of trouble and root or cause of problems in the church is we don't love one another well, and many times we struggle to love the world with evangelism, with benevolence, and so that passage really challenged me, and so I think that's what I'd tell that young preacher: learn to love like Jesus. Study, gain all the knowledge you can. Listen to, good, sound, reliable preaching, but at the same time, that has to move us to look more like Christ. And if it doesn't, it's not worth anything.
It's balance. Always has been,
right.
Always will be.
Right.
There's the truth in love, and there's the truth in love with a little bit of spice to it, if you will. That's Jude 1,
Yeah.
21 through 23.
Yeah.
Some you save with compassion. You tell them, hey, come on, let's do it this way. And others you save with fear, like pulling them out of the fire. And it's never trying to berate or belittle, but it's with the urgency of what we would say if we saw one of our children walking towards an open flame and having no intent to slow down. We would be with some umph, yelling, "Get back! What are you doing?"
Yep.
I think sometimes we've forgotten that being a preacher doesn't mean you're just up there presenting the Word of God, but it also doesn't mean that you get to take a stick into the pulpit and line up the congregation one by one and whack them on the head.
Yeah.
And so I think there is a balance that has to be approached that way. And I will say this on the serious one, so that next episode that we're all silly and everything, I can get this out of the way. I am thankful for the Butler family for a lot of reasons. Chris specifically, when you called me several years ago now and talked about trying to bring back, preachers to camp and wanting to establish that kind of culture, I did not really necessarily grow up loving Sardis Lake Christian Camp. It was a rough week for me. My mom always made me go, and then I'd get there and I didn't have as much fun as I normally thought I would, and so I had kind of reached a point in my life where I thought, well, I'm an adult now. I don't have to go back. It's okay. It's good they love it and have it. And you called and sold me on, we need preachers. Let's do this. And so I started coming back, and I remember I called my wife one night and I said, this is the culture that I'm enjoying. I love getting to go there and enjoy spending time with all of the other preachers and other of the members of camp that we've got with staff. So many of our staff have now gone through preaching school, and I'm grateful for that. Several of the staff have been through Memphis already, and the culture that you and Tim and all the other directors have established is a really good one right now for what we need in the church, which is an understanding that camp can be fun, camp can be great. Let's also make sure we're training without forcing.
That's right.
And I'm not saying that that's what was happening at Sardis Lake back when I was a kid, but today we see so many camps try to force baptisms and force other things. And I love the approach of let's do this and let's make sure that they're ready, but let's not make it seem like, well, my best friend just went forward, so now I've got to, because my friends aren't going to like me if I'm not faithful too, and there's that problem. And so I have a lot of respect for you and the work that you do, and I'm appreciative of you. And honestly, anyone that can put up with me deserves the utmost respect, and Chris is slowly getting there. Chris, we love you very much and on our side of the family, and I'm thankful that you took some time to be with us, Wayne.
Yeah, absolutely. And I want to just kind of go back for just a moment. The advice to the preacher, loving like Jesus, that's something we all need right now, that kind of advice. We need that for our families. We need that for pulpits. We need it for our communities. And so that's great advice. Love you, brother. Love what you're doing, too.
Well, I appreciate you guys for having me on, and I appreciate the work you're doing. Y'all keep up the good work, and give Jack a little extra work every opportunity you get.
Definitely.
And it's good for him. But, in all seriousness, known Michael for a long time, and we've worked hard to create that culture there, and so we hope you'll be around for many years to come, as well as the crew that we have together now.
Yeah.
I feel like we're doing some really good things there, and I hope that all of you will continue to be a part of it. I couldn't do it without you. I want camp to run on its own without me there, and I think we're really, I think we're close, if not there. So
we're at least a year away from you being gone. So that's good.
That's right.
Well, next Thursday, this Thursday, don't freak out. Everybody else has been concerned because normally the way we film these, we've told them ahead of time, but it'll be Thursday for the listeners. It'll be 10 seconds after we're done for you. We will have Did That Really Happen with Chris Butler, and I cannot wait because I have messaged all of Chris Butler's classmates from Memphis. They have sent me no stories, so I had to make up some stuff.
That's right.
But next Thursday for you guys, this upcoming, I guess I should say, we'll be back with Chris having a chance to cut up a little bit more, and I think you'll enjoy that episode. I hope you've enjoyed this, and we're a work of the Memphis School of Preaching here at Scattered Abroad, so if you're looking for a preaching school, look no further. All three of us that have been on the podcast today are alumni, and we are thankful for the time that we spent at MSOP. All of us had a little bit of a different style of instruction, I would say, different time and different period of instruction. Some of us even just different instructors, but the same gospel message, and I believe that that's still powerful enough today that though many of the instructors that trained the two of you and even some that trained me are unfortunately no longer with us, the faithful men that are still there are preaching the truth faithfully, and I think anybody would be benefited by being there. So next time we're together, we will have on next Tuesday, Jeff Archie back on the program. Jeff is, of course, the host of International Gospel Hour, and we're looking forward to having him then. But until then, take care and God bless.